Tonight, Donald Trump reveals the U.S. plan to end the war in Gaza.
And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East.
The call for Hamas to disarm, withdraw, and be replaced by a so-called Board of Peace.
It will be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump.
Israel agrees and threatens Hamas must, too.
This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way.
We break down the plan, the pitfalls, and where it leaves the brutal war nearly 2 years on. A major lifeline for Canadian steel.
We have to be certain that the company exists.
The $500 million loan in the face of punishing tariffs. And we're here in Ottawa on the eve of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
These schools were a mistake, and they shouldn't have existed.
Saskatchewan apologizes for a residential school that operated for more than a century.
This is The National in Ottawa with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. We are just steps from Parliament Hill, where late tonight the Prime Minister has thrown his support behind Donald Trump's plan to end the war in Gaza, calling on Hamas to release the hostages immediately. Earlier today, Trump, alongside the Israeli Prime Minister, unveiled his proposal to achieve, in his words, eternal peace in the Middle East. So it would involve a ceasefire and a handover of Gaza to international forces overseen by a new Board of Peace headed by Trump himself. In return, Hamas would release all the hostages, disarm, and effectively disappear. If it doesn't, Israel continues the war with full U.S. support. Chris Reyes has the details and the reaction to a plan to end nearly 2 years of war, a plan that hinges on a lot of unknowns.
Big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization.
President Donald Trump announcing his plan to end the war in Gaza.
It's called Peace in the Middle East.
The proposal applauded by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who stood side by side President Trump as he laid out the 20-point plan that includes a commitment to return all hostages, followed by an exchange for Palestinian prisoners, amnesty for Hamas members who commit to lay down arms, deploy a temporary stabilization force assembled by U.S., Arab, and international partners, a commitment from Israel not to occupy or annex Gaza, and a creation of a Trump economic development plan to rebuild.
The Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States.
Netanyahu warned if Hamas rejects the proposal, Israel will continue its fight in Gaza alone.
This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way. But it will be done.
The proposal comes as the war nears the 2-year mark, sparked by the October 7th attacks, when Hamas-led militants killed 1,200 Israelis, mostly civilians, and took more than 240 hostages. Now, with just 20 hostages still believed to be held alive in Gaza, the announcement was watched live by some families of hostages in Tel Aviv who are hopeful this deal will bring their loved ones home.
This is very, very good news. President Trump, like he said, is totally committed to bringing peace and prosperity to this region.
Israeli attacks have killed more than 66,000 people in Gaza, according to Gaza's health ministry, and reduced much of the territory to rubble. Netanyahu presented the plan as achieving his war aims.
It's a victory for Netanyahu. He's coming out of that after 2 years saying, I rest my case. I outlasted the detractors, the criticism, and here I'm getting what I wanted.
Trump's proposal has broad support from countries in the region, but there is only a vague promise to support a future Palestinian state if the Palestinian Authority reforms.
Would you like to take a question or two from perhaps a friendly Israeli reporter, if there's such a thing?
Despite Trump's invitation, the two leaders in the end decided not to take questions. Hamas officials say they're now looking at Trump's proposal.
And Chris, it's interesting because the biggest shift here seems to be that a lot of countries in the region are already behind it.
That's right. A coalition of foreign ministers from a number of countries in the region, including Qatar, Jordan, Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, welcomed the plan and in a joint statement said that they were ready to engage with the U.S. and other parties to finalize the agreement. Now, this proposal, Adrian, comes as Netanyahu apologized to Qatar in a trilateral phone call with their prime minister and Trump, promising not to launch any more attacks on their Middle East allies.
All right, that's Chris Reyes in New York. Thank you. Later in the show, we will explore how realistic this plan is and who some of the winners and losers might end up being. That is coming up in the breakdown. Now, over social media, Donald Trump announced he will impose a 100% tariff on films made outside of the United States. One veteran Canadian movie producer told CBC News it could be a shockwave to the industry.
I've been talking to American producers today that are my friends, and they are discouraged, you know. They might think twice before saying they're going to come and do a movie either in Montreal, Toronto, or Vancouver.
But it's unclear how such a tariff would work, with Hollywood productions often financing, shooting, and contracting expertise from all over the world. It is also not clear when Trump would actually impose the tariff. Well, the federal and Ontario governments are lending $500 million to Algoma Steel. The Canadian company is buckling under the weight of Donald Trump's steel tariffs. But as Anis Haidari explains, dealing with the loss of the U.S. market will take more than just money.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in federal and provincial loans are going to Northern Ontario steel company Algoma.
We need to pivot to a future where primarily we are thriving on a Canadian domestic steel market.
The $500 million is essentially a buffer while the company adjusts to Donald Trump's 50% tariffs.
It takes time to understand what the future of the Canadian market is going to look like and understand if we need to diversify our steel making.
$400 million of the money is federal to keep steel in Canada.
We have to be certain that the company exists because, in fact, without it, we do not have a Canadian-owned, Canadian manufacturer.
It's the first loan from a federal program meant to help industries facing tariffs move away from American customers. Though industry experts point out loans aren't enough unless federal and provincial governments agree to buy and build quickly.
This would be obviously good news to Algoma, good news to the entire steel industry, and would help really justify this investment that's being made by the federal government and the Ontario government.
These loans should protect some, but not all, of the 2,800 workers at Sault Ste. Marie's largest employer.
So it's going to depend on what department you work in the steel plant. So if you're currently employed in the blast furnace and the coke making, and part of the announcement said that they're going to transition out of that business quicker than originally planned, then it's not good news.
Both the governments giving the loans and the company want alternatives to U.S. customers. Algoma already lost more than $110 million last quarter. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
The federal government has declared the Bishnoi Gang a terrorist entity after months of political pressure to act. As Caroline Bargout explains, the group is accused of targeting people in this country, allegedly sometimes at the behest of the Indian government.
The Bishnoi Gang has been linked to the 2022 murder of Brampton-based Punjabi rapper Sidhu Moosewala and the extortions of Sikh businesses in BC, Alberta, and Ontario. Now, the federal government is declaring it a terrorist entity.
Since June, we've been calling for the Lawrence Bishnoi Group to be listed as a terrorist organization in Canada.
The RCMP has accused the gang of targeting Canadian Sikhs who support the creation of an independent state within India known as Khalistan, at the direction of the Indian government. The terrorist designation means the government can now freeze or seize the gang's property, vehicles, and money, and gives police more resources to tackle financing, travel, and recruitment.
We want a very clear sign to the Bishnoi Gang that Canada is no longer open for business for their activities.
Canada's relationship with India has been rocky since the killing of prominent Sikh separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He was shot to death in Surrey, BC in 2023. The killing linked to Indian government agents. India denies it. But it led to the expulsion of Indian and Canadian diplomats. 2 years later, relations have thawed somewhat, and that doesn't sit well with many in the Sikh community.
India has not backed down from its transnational oppression. So what are we doing trying to renew ties with that country when it's engaging in, once again, violent and criminal activities in our country?
But foreign policy experts say it's vital for Canada and India to maintain diplomatic ties.
We can't reduce the entire relationship to one issue. India is too consequential, it's too important, including for all the Indo-Canadians who want us to have relations with India so they can travel, they can do business, there could be people-to-people exchanges.
The federal government says the designation gives Canadian law enforcement one more tool to make communities safer. Caroline Bargood, CBC News, Vancouver.
WestJet says some customers' personal information was exposed in a cybersecurity breach earlier this year. The airline says a criminal third party gained access to its systems in June. Data involved includes names, contact information, travel details, and documents related to reservations, but passwords, credit, and debit card information was not stolen. Well, investigators are sharing new details about the gunman who sprayed bullets at a Michigan church on Sunday, then lit it on fire. 4 people were killed and several others were injured in the attack. And Katie Simpson shows us officials are appealing for calm as they try to pinpoint a motive.
There's not much left of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan. Investigators work to clear the massive scene. In the deadly shooting and arson attack, they say was targeted.
Evil. This was an evil act of violence.
Everyone is now accounted for, though police continue to search the rubble for additional bodies. The victims, both dead and injured, range in age from 6 to 78, as terrifying stories of survival emerge. After the suspect rammed the church with a truck, he began shooting. Paul Kirby barely escaped his path.
With how close he was getting to me with his shooting, I was just standing there running, expecting to get a bullet in the back of my just legs or in my back or something.
40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford has been identified as the gunman shot dead by police. A former U.S. Marine, he was also a married father with a criminal record for burglary and drunk driving. The White House says FBI agents are still working on a motive.
All they know right now is this was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith.
That very much seems to track with comments Sanford made at his door to a city council candidate who canvassed at his home last week.
He did make the statement that Mormons are the Antichrist, which is a shocking statement. And again, this is somebody you're just meeting for the first time.
But social media is running rampant with all sorts of unproven theories, fueled in part by a photo of Sanford in a Donald Trump t-shirt and images of a Trump election sign at his house. Authorities have not said politics is a factor as they plead for patience.
Speculation is unhelpful and it can be downright dangerous. So just ask that people lower the temperature of rhetoric.
The shooter's father spoke briefly to a reporter in Michigan, saying he feels so badly about the families affected by this and that his family, they're beside themselves.
And Katie, we can't forget this was just one of several mass shootings in the U.S. just this past weekend.
Yeah, there was another high-profile incident at a restaurant in North Carolina. An advocacy group that tracks these cases says there have been 324 mass shootings in the U.S. so far this year, a problem that is so common. Police in Michigan say that the kids who survived the church attack, their active shooter training from school kicked in, helping make the escape more orderly.
Extraordinary. All right, Katie Simpson in Washington. In Manitoba, the family of a First Nations man is a step closer to clearing his name. The federal justice minister ordered Canada's first ever posthumous appeal in the killing of a Winnipeg man in 1973. As Cameron McIntosh explains, this comes after 3 others convicted in the case were also exonerated.
Hello, Mrs.
Hi there.
As National Chief, Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak sees fairness in the justice system as a leading priority for First Nations, due in part to the experience of an uncle who helped raise her.
For him to be, put away in jail for something that I know in my heart that he never did, is so disheartening.
Her uncle, Russell Woodhouse, was convicted of manslaughter in 1974, and now will be the first person in Canada to have a conviction appealed posthumously. Amid evidence, he was wrongly convicted.
I just remember him in a good way today, but I wish he could have seen this day.
Russell was convicted along with 3 other men, his brother Clarence, Ellen Woodhouse, and Brian Anderson, after a man was found dead following his shift at this Winnipeg restaurant. After his sentence, Russell later lived with Woodhouse-Nepanak's family. He died in 2011, before new evidence emerged that Winnipeg police wrongly blamed the men and fabricated confessions, which led to the recent exonerations of the other 3 men.
Shows he's being acquitted.
A further review of Russell's case by Federal Justice Minister Sean Fraser concluded he was also a victim of the same wrongdoing.
We thought it was essential that we have his conviction set aside. An Indigenous man wrongly convicted of a murder he didn't commit.
Woodhouse-Nepanak says the acquittals of all the men are significant for all First Nations.
How many other First Nations families are out there? How many Indigenous people are out there that are going through the same fate that my Uncle Russell went through?
A hearing date will be set in the Manitoba Court of Appeal. The provincial crown says it agrees an appeal is warranted. In the cases of the other 3 men, it did not contest an acquittal. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Gaming giant Electronic Arts is being acquired for an unprecedented $55 billion US. The deal means the company behind popular games like EAFC and The Sims would go private. The buyers include Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund and 2 private equity firms, one of which is run by U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. A federal program that paid for asylum seekers to stay at hotels is coming to an end, forcing people to find a new place to stay by tomorrow. Nicole Williams now on the reason for the change and the scramble on the ground.
Wait. This team is working around the clock, moving asylum seekers and their families into new homes in Ottawa because time has run out.
I spoke to the children and they asked me, are they going to be on the street?
The federal government is ending its temporary hotel housing program for asylum seekers Tuesday. In operation since 2018, it's been a stopgap measure in Ontario and Quebec to deal with a surge in migration. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada says it has spent more than $1 billion on the program and housed more than 15,000 people.
People who are remaining in these hotels are among the most vulnerable of asylum seekers.
While Canada isn't obligated to provide housing, without the program, some say they will have no place to go. In Ottawa and Toronto, shelters are overflowing.
We can either stop sheltering refugees claimants, leave them on the street, or Torontonians will have to pay for it through their property taxes. Neither is fair.
In Ottawa, officials are encouraging claimants to take up IRCC's offer to relocate, potentially out of province.
When people cross borders, they cross with their rights. They have a right to a fair process. They have a right to shelter.
It's like a land of honey and milk to me.
John Mochama and his wife arrived from Kenya 2 years ago, ending up in a hotel in Niagara Falls, Ontario, as part of the hotel program. Mochama says that gave him some time to find a home, a job, and a sense of safety.
I'm just urging the federal government to look at it this way, that I'm a product of those who are now asylum seekers.
IRCC is not saying how many people in the country are still living in federally funded hotels, but it has confirmed it will not be extending the program deadline. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Saskatchewan has issued a new apology for a residential school that operated for more than a century.
The school was part of a larger colonial agenda and cultural genocide.
How survivors are responding. And using cannabis to manage back pain.
When I read the paper, I was like, this is what we've been waiting for.
Why the treatment is showing promise. And racing around Iceland to set a world record.
Let's go!
Oh yeah!
We're back in 2.
To the survivors that are with us today, your stories are an immense gift to all of us.
That is the Governor General there hosting residential school survivors ahead of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. 3 new sculptures were also unveiled for the Rideau Hall Heart Garden, which includes all children who attended residential schools. Well, Saskatchewan's premier officially apologized today to a group of residential school survivors while also announcing a settlement worth more than $40 million. Alexander Kwan with a reaction from some survivors.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe expressed remorse as he spoke to residential school survivors in Île-à-la-Crosse.
Simply put, these schools were a mistake, and they shouldn't have existed.
Wearing a beaded Saskatchewan flag, Moe apologized.
Today, on behalf of the province of Saskatchewan, I apologize to you.
For more than a century, Métis and First Nations children attended the residential school in Île-à-la-Crosse, about 460 kilometers north of Saskatoon. Created in 1860, it predates the federal residential school system, and so was not part of the 2006 residential school settlement. The survivors say their experiences were no less horrific.
The very purpose of the school was part of a larger colonial agenda and cultural genocide.
The estimated 1,500 children that attended the school were forbidden from practicing their culture or speaking their language, some suffering physical and sexual abuse. Survivors filed a class action lawsuit against the provincial and federal governments, which led to this settlement of more than $40 million. Louis Gardner began attending the residential school when he was 5 years old. He sat with his grandchildren to hear the apology, saying it was for their benefit as much as his.
They need to be the voices now to say, later on, now I understand what residential school really was, what it meant, and also what the agenda was. What I said is take the culture out of that child.
Ottawa announced its own $27 million settlement with survivors earlier this year. The provincial government says it believes its settlement will be certified by 2026. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Île-à-la-Crosse, Saskatchewan.
Now, if you or someone you know is a residential school survivor in need of help, there is a crisis hotline available 24 hours a day. You can call 1-866-925-4419. Well, a new study says a cannabis-based drug could be a long-term solution to deal with lower back pain.
But people with chronic pain are using these products for years, sometimes decades.
How the treatment works and who it's benefiting most. And the fight for Aboriginal title to ancestral land.
If you were to take my DNA, it would link us directly right to the land.
The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next.
Ground ball fair, Guerrero to Lauer, and they've done it.
One day after this very big win, the Toronto Blue Jays are looking to the next series. And if they face the New York Yankees, fans from Canada won't be able to watch from Yankee Stadium. The Yankees restricted tickets to residents of only 4 U.S. states, citing the policy as a measure to fight ticket scalping. Well, there is new evidence tonight that cannabis may be able to help treat lower back pain. A new study suggests it may be just as effective as other drugs and safer. Jennifer Yoon digs into the research.
And exhale once you're up there. Good.
Chronic lower back pain. It's common but complicated to treat and sometimes debilitating.
So there are some times where it hurts so much just to even get out of bed. I'd have to log roll and get out.
Now a new study suggests a cannabis-based drug could help. German researchers studied more than 800 people with low back pain, giving about half the group a cannabis extract with a large THC component, the compound that makes people high. After 12 weeks, researchers found the cannabis group saw a modest reduction in pain.
A number of patients experienced such a 30% or 50% reduction of pain.
Those with nerve pain felt the most relief, say researchers.
This is important because Patients with a neuropathic component of pain are often much more difficult to treat.
Other than sleepiness and dizziness, the drug appears not to have serious side effects, unlike ibuprofen when taken long term. It also didn't appear to be addictive, unlike opioids.
When I read the paper, I was like, this is what we've been waiting for.
This Toronto anesthesiologist says the study is just a start. There are more trials underway in Canada weighing the evidence for how effective cannabis can be for pain.
This is one study. It is a big study that really gives us that direction that we want to see in terms of medical benefit.
The drug hasn't been approved for use yet in North America. Some say more research is needed.
But people with chronic pain are using these products for years, sometimes decades, not for 3 months.
As researchers continue to gather the evidence, doctors emphasize long-term pain relief often takes more than just drugs. Things like exercise, physical therapy, and mindfulness can also help. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. Tonight, addressing long-standing injustices against Indigenous peoples on the eve of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. 10 years after crucial calls to action were made, Canada's achingly slow progress towards truth and reconciliation.
The Liberal government at the time had promised to completing all of them.
And we'll drill down on the fight for Aboriginal title to a vast chunk of New Brunswick.
Indigenous people will never receive justice in the colonial legal system.
But first, let's take a look at those calls to action to understand how much is still to be done.
It is our intention that the calls to action will help bring about a new era for all of Canada, for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people alike.
A decade ago, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission laid out 94 calls to action. CBC News has been tracking progress on them through a project called Beyond 94, and it's packed with information. The categories are color-coded, like orange for education, green for justice. You can see which ones are completed, like establishing a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which ones aren't, and which are somewhere in the middle. You can also read each recommendation in full and find a detailed analysis of what has happened on it so far. This is all at cbc.ca/beyond94. Now let's zero in on the call for Canada's courts and governments to support the concept of Aboriginal title. To understand what that is, here's Sissa Mohan from CBC Indigenous. She breaks down the battle for a very large part of New Brunswick.
The Wolastoqey River, also known as the St. John River, runs up the entire western half of New Brunswick. It means the beautiful and bountiful river. The tributaries and streams that feed into it make up half the province. The traditional territory of the Wolastoqey Nation, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. And they want some of that land back.
So also the river was a highway, transportation route. It was able to take us from community down to St. John, Minocquest. They call Minocquest, down to the ocean.
Ed Purley is an elder with the Wolastoqey Nation of New Brunswick, which is currently tied up in court with the Crown, fighting for Aboriginal title to their ancestral territory.
It's unfortunate that we have to prove that the land is for our use. And, if you were to take your DNA and my DNA, and they would link us directly right to the land, because that's where we came from, and that's when we'll go back to.
So driving along the Trans-Canada Highway from Edmundston to Fredericton, this is all traditional Wolastoqey territory as far as the eye can see. So can you tell me where we are right now?
So we're standing on the banks of the Wolastoqey River. So Wolastoqey in Wolastoqey means beautiful and bountiful river. And we are Wolastoqey, which is the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. Both sides of the
Chief Patricia Bernard has been down this path before.
There's an area here outlined in red, and the notation said, the Indians require the area outlined in red with the exception of this particular lot. So it shows the acreage of the reserve.
Successfully litigating a smaller specific land claim in her community of Madawaska in 2021. Now, she is one of 6 Wolastoqey chiefs back in the courts, and it's a whole new challenge for the nation as a whole, fighting for Aboriginal title to their ancestral homelands.
So the lands that we want back are lands that don't have any infrastructure, and if you're a private landholder, we're not going after you if you're not named in our claim.
The Wolastoqey River connects the 6 New Brunswick Wolastoqey communities. Their ties to the river are the backbone of their case.
The river runs through the heart of the territory and our homelands, and it plays a huge part, particularly when it comes to proving that yes, we were living along this river, and it's pretty hard to sort of claim, no, you weren't, when we're actually named after the river. Like, we are the river.
A formal response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action.
One of the recommendations from the 2015 Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action dealt with Aboriginal title, and it may be one of the hardest to make progress on. Proving title can be a lengthy and costly process, requiring Indigenous nations to prove sufficient and continuous occupation of their territory. To gain Aboriginal title, the nation needs to prove they exclusively occupied a territory at the date of the assertion of sovereignty.
It's the date where the British started acting as though they were the sovereign, right?
Renee Peltier is the lawyer for the Wolastoqey Nation.
And so the courts have said in New Brunswick that date is 1759. And so part of the reason that Aboriginal title cases take as long as they do is we need to collect a bunch of evidence to show where the Wolastoqey were in 1759, what parts of their territory, how they were using their territory, and that they were using their territory to the exclusion of other Indigenous nations.
When we look at the call to action around Aboriginal title, are you able to unpack that a little bit?
I think that the spirit of it is really calling on the federal, provincial governments, like the Crown, to sit down and to try to resolve issues outside of the courtroom. Courts have actually said that this idea of reconciliation, the Supreme Court of Canada said, rarely happens inside the courtroom. Having First Nations or Indigenous nations have to go through a court process for decades, spending millions of dollars, that can't be the solution.
Ron Tremblay is Grand Chief of the Wolastoqey Grand Council. And although he is not involved with the Wolastoqey Nation of New Brunswick's litigation, his commitment to his culture is more than skin deep. His knowledge of the language holds some of the answers when it comes to further proving the traditional connection between the Wolastoqey and New Brunswick.
We have place names in all these places. The city of St. John, we have a name for that. Minocquest, where the rocks had split. And we have a story why those rocks were split. So that's the first thing that the colonizer did, is they came and they changed the names of our sacred places and where we met, where we gathered.
But until something changes in the way Canada addresses issues around Aboriginal title, cases like this will have to be resolved in court. Where Tremblay is skeptical nations like the Wolastoqey will ever get fair treatment.
Indigenous people will never receive justice in the colonial legal system because it's their system. And it's always us being behind the 8 ball, having to prove our existence.
That was Sissa Mohan from CBC Indigenous with a view from New Brunswick. Now, earlier today, I spoke with Eva Jewell, an assistant professor at Toronto Metropolitan University who is from Chippewas of the Thames First Nation and spent years tracking the TRC's calls to action. Eva, nice to see you. we're trying to figure something out here. 94 calls to action outlined a decade ago, in the neighborhood of 17 that haven't even been started. What is one of those calls not started that baffles you for languishing the way it is?
Yeah, I think of a few. One is really interesting to me that hasn't been started, and it is the Prime Minister of Canada's State of Aboriginal Peoples report. This is a report that is meant to be developed by the National Council for Reconciliation. It's also meant to compare outcomes in child welfare, health, justice, and education between Canadians and Indigenous peoples. We suspect that these comparative outcomes would be very telling about the certain kinds of inequities that continue to exist between Indigenous peoples and Canadians, but they're also really important to understanding exactly what needs to be done to bring Canadians and Indigenous peoples to parity, which is arguably what reconciliation is about. All of these are meant to be an annual report from the Prime Minister themselves to really lead the country in what is being done about reconciliation in Canada.
What do you think explains that isn't happening?
I don't think the infrastructure exists. It's been 10 years since the calls to action have been released. The Liberal government at the time had promised to completing all of them. Some really meaningful work could have been done in developing the infrastructure to release these types of reports, such as, data agreements between certain ministries, or building that infrastructure to report to the Canadian public about these outcomes and their inequities.
Do you ever worry sometimes that this risks becoming a box ticking exercise?
100%. I think that in my work that I've done in the past in tracking the calls to action, we tracked whether or not they were complete or not. And this does risk a certain element of box ticking or just numerically identifying which ones have been completed. But I also argue that the calls to action themselves have a lot of wisdom within them. And the more that we complete, the more meaningful action we have toward, relieving some of those inequities that Indigenous peoples are facing, which is why we chose to put such a strict criteria to our methodology.
So can you take me ahead to the day after all 94 calls to action have been met? What does Canada look like on that day?
Well, it is a country that is informed by treaties that it itself had signed with Indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples enjoy parity. I think there's no climate crisis. I think that there's, I don't want to say it's a utopia, but it's certainly a place that is better positioned toward the equitable country that Canada so desires to have. And I think that, Canadians themselves would really benefit from reconciliation as well, and actually embody that country that so many people have come to love.
Okay. Eva Jewell, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And tomorrow, CBC News will bring you special coverage of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation commemoration right here in Ottawa, called Remembering the Children. I'll be coming to you live from Parliament Hill starting at 2 p.m. Eastern on CBC TV, GEM, or wherever else you find CBC News. Now, it's back to today's top story. Donald Trump says he has a plan to end the war in Gaza.
And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East.
So how real is that, and where would it leave the people of Gaza? Janice Stein has it covered. How realistic is Donald Trump's plan to end the war in Gaza?
Decommission the military capabilities of Hamas.
Where would it leave the people of Gaza? And is the world really ready for Trump to head the body that would initially govern? Janice Stein is one of the most trusted and connected analysts in this country. So Janice, can you help us make sense of this? Is this peace plan going to work?
There's a real shot at it, Adrian, but there's a big picture here. Their fighting will start. And that, I think, is the goal. It's dressed up with a very complicated 20-point process that will stretch on for years. But the big takeaway is as soon as Hamas signals its agreement, and whether it does or it doesn't, frankly, the fighting will stop, which is the most urgent thing in the region right now.
Is that effectively what's in this for Netanyahu?
So what's in it for Netanyahu is he can climb down from the branch of the tree where he has locked himself in. And biggest story of all for him, all the living and the dead hostages come back. That has roiled the Israeli public for 18 months. Adrian, that is a huge win for him.
And you talked about Hamas. What is your instinct about how this will land with Hamas?
So this is, I think Hamas is between a rock and a hard place right now. What is so striking, and in many ways, only Trump could do this deal. The whole of the greater Middle East came out today in support of this agreement, from Turkey to Pakistan, which just gave a nuclear guarantee to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Emirates, Egypt, Jordan. That really puts Hamas in the crosshairs because it's isolated, frankly. It has a really difficult choice to make. Agree to this, which requires it to disarm and to have no part in the future governance of Gaza, or isolate itself, fight on with no support.
Janice, this plan includes the creation of what's being called the Transitional Board to oversee Gaza's governance. Trump will be the chair of that board. What does that language tell you?
Well, it's stunning, Adrian, frankly. This is old-fashioned trusteeship, let's call it what it is, run by the businessman in chief, pulling in investment. That's partly a good news story for Palestinians in Gaza, given the horrific scale of the destruction. So it is a 19th century concept married to 21st century practices, frankly. It's a very long timeline ahead, Adrian, for a political path here, with no clear end in sight, frankly, but it is better than what Palestinians in Gaza are facing now.
Mm-hmm. One last thought. What would you expect to happen next if this is on track to work?
First thing to watch for, what does Hamas do? And there's two ways this goes forward. If Hamas says yes, within 72 hours, there is a ceasefire, a return of hostages, an exchange of prisoners, and equally important, humanitarian aid goes in. That's the hope. If Hamas says no, this process still goes ahead. So Hamas has lost its veto along with Netanyahu. They both lost their veto. So in the 2/3 of Gaza that the IDF now controls, this process starts anyway, but the fighting continues in the south. That's the tough choice now for Hamas. That's what we have to watch for.
Okay. Janice Stein, thank you. Coming up, a Canadian runner becomes the fastest person to run around Iceland.
My days would be about, say, 16 hours of running. I would say by far the hardest thing I've ever done.
Why he says it was like being thrown around in a washing machine. Next. So this is Ryan Keeping, pictured here, attempting to break a world record and become the fastest person to run around the entire country of Iceland. So the previous record was 16 days, but Keeping from Halifax shaved 2 full days off the record, completing his run in 2 weeks. Why and how his Icelandic runaround is our moment.
My record that I set was 14 days, 13 hours, and 38 minutes. My days would be about, say, 16 hours of running. I would say by far the hardest thing I've ever done. We set off to go to Iceland to run around the entire country, 1,390 kilometers. That was my first time in Iceland, and it was a crazy, crazy journey with the weather and the elevation, the landscape. It looks like you're almost on Mars. It definitely made it challenging. My first day, I ran 110 kilometers. It was probably like, I don't know, close to 100-kilometer headwind all day, so it was pushing me back, and we went up 2,500 meters of elevation. Felt like you were in like a washing machine being thrown around, kind of. Oh, yeah. Doing these long runs kind of really sucks, and that's why I like it. If I gave my best and I beat the record by 1 minute, or if I beat it by 2 days, I'm gonna feel the same because I gave everything I possibly had, and now I'm a world record holder. I'm incredibly proud, and it was quite the challenge.
No kidding. Ryan, I want to know, are your knees okay? Are your hips okay? Are you okay? This is huge. Also, for the heck of it, he also ran across Canada in 99 days. From all of us at The National, thanks for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault in Ottawa. Take care.